Hey balancers, and welcome to another episode of the Balance Theory podcast. Today's episode is going to be a very short and sweet one because it's really a simple mindset shift that I've adopted that has been so profound. What I want to do is take you through what it is and give you an example in each of our balance areas so that if it's something that you've been struggling with, you can see how to practically adopt it. I'm not just going to throw this your way and let you run with it and say good luck, all the best. I'm actually going to show you why and how it works for a different scenario so that you actually can feel equipped to go forth and try and embrace this yourself. It's probably something you've come across in the past, but when you hear it again and when it's specific and you can think of a situation it applies to, it's really profound. But just before we dive in, I do want to ask everyone who has either started or not had a chance yet to give us a little bit of feedback for our up and coming rebrand to do so. It's going to take no longer than 2 minutes. And honestly, your thoughts mean the absolute world to me. Since this podcast inception, it's been grown and changed and pulled in different directions thanks to each and every one of you. You know, every conversation I've had with you guys, every review and rating, every time somebody has referred it on to somebody else and that person has become a balancer, all of those things have contributed to who and where we are today. And I want to continue that momentum. So the link is in the show notes. When you have time to just drop your thoughts, I'm going to have it open for a couple of more weeks. It would mean the absolute world. But let's get to the most powerful reframe I've ever heard in my life. The reframe is when something happens to you, whether good or bad, whatever it is, just something happens in your life, to not ask the question, why is this happening to me? But ask the question, what is it trying to teach me? This has really changed the way I have approached particularly challenges and difficulties in my life, which, by the way, let's just acknowledge when we're going through something tough, it can really stop us in our tracks. It can really make us question ourselves. It can make us question the direction we're going in. It can really floor us and kind of keep us stuck in our ways for a really long time. And so this question is going to be so powerful for you in moments where you feel like things are happening outside of your control. Now, on that note, the first part of that question, not to ask, why is this happening to me? When we're in that camp where we kind of ask why, why is something happening to me? Why is the universe throwing this my way? Why has so-and-so person, said that to me? We are coming from a place of complete victimhood. And when you come from a place where you feel like a victim, you feel powerless. And what that means is you have no control over your situation and you have no power to change your situation. And that's why you get stuck, because you convince yourself or you think to yourself that there's no other way. And because of that, you literally don't move. You don't move on. You don't move sideways. You just don't move because you think that you're stuck and everything else around you has happened to you. This obviously can lead to a lot of uncomfortable emotions. We get really angry. We get really frustrated. We get confused with this. There's no understanding as to, why we are in these situations, why this has happened to us. But if we reframe and step into the question of, what is this trying to teach me? You can already see how that gives you the opportunity to take control of a situation. And like most things, it comes down to the first step of self-awareness. So you're trying to tap into an awareness of what a situation is presenting for you, to you, or because of something. When you ask this question, what is this trying to teach me? You are acknowledging that there is something to learn from every situation. You're acknowledging that there is an opportunity for growth, that irrespective what or why something happens, it's a chance for you to understand something more about yourself. And when you start looking at challenges in this way, you start viewing them as sometimes necessary steps. I know and I said sometimes because I know sometimes things are really tough, right? Like things happen that really suck, that are just horrible, and it's almost unfathomable why something would happen. I think if you can really tap into this question of what is this trying to teach me, or what can I learn from this situation, then it helps you progress. It helps you move forward with things rather than be stuck. Now, this reframe can be applied to any situation, and as promised, I'm going to take you through 3 very common ones we get across our health, relationships, and our work. But what I want you to know is that if you approach situations or challenges with openness and curiosity, you will definitely uncover insights and lessons that, as I said before, help you move forward and move on. So if at the moment you've got a situation in mind, something I think that's fitting for this is you almost feel like you're held back by it. Because of it, you haven't been able to do X, Y, Z. Because this happened to you, you're stuck where you are. Because this happened to you, you don't have all these other opportunities. So if you have an example like that, whether it's a relationship, something that's happened in your health, or something that, has happened at work, if you have a situation like that, that is perfect for this kind of reframe. And, it's not always easy, especially in the moment when these things happen, to be like, oh, great, that's what this is teaching me. This is a lesson. This is fantastic. Often there's a lot of emotion and understanding and processing that needs to happen before we get to that point. But when you feel like you've processed, you've moved on, you've healed from whatever has happened, whether it be a trauma or a challenge or something difficult, then when you're ready, you can ask the question. And it's almost like that final step that really solidifies or heals you in the process of understanding that situation. And I just wanted to say that because obviously there is a complete spectrum of seriousness of the gravity of things that can happen. And so it's not always as simple as, okay, ask this in the moment. Sometimes we need time to heal and move through what's happened. But when you're at that point and you feel ready to move on, or that you'd like to move on, but you're just feeling stuck, you can turn to this question. You can turn to this reframe to take yourself out from feeling and being a victim once you're ready to take control of the situation. So let's go through an example with our health. So let's say something has happened in your health, in your body, right? You've maybe going through an illness, maybe you've got an injury. Rather than viewing that as your body failing you, right? So you feel like a victim, like, why has this happened to me? Why have I broken my toe? Why have I broken my arm? Why have I been diagnosed with this? Instead of falling into that victimhood, because ultimately it's happened, right? And I know this might sound really harsh, but it's happened and there's nothing you can do about it. You are dealing with this health issue. To switch and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Think of the body as pain, injury, illness. That's its way to communicate with you. Maybe there's a lifestyle shift you need to undergo, and that is your body's way of communicating that to you. Maybe you've been completely filled with stress and burnout. Maybe you've been pushing yourself too much. Maybe you've been negating, eating or having just in general a healthier lifestyle. Maybe you can reframe and just understand, what can I learn from this? How do I avoid this happening in the future? And in turn, you increase that self-awareness, can grow and be a better person for it. That's an example of something that's come to mind for me with the health. Let's think about a relationship, right? Whether you want to position this in a romantic relationship or a friendship, think of a relationship that's failed, quote unquote failed, right? Maybe somebody's left you. Maybe someone's ghosted you, whatever it is. It's so easy, especially when we're dealing with someone else, to think that you're the problem and fall into this victim place where you're like, well, why did this happen to me? I'm a great person. I'm super lovable. I didn't do anything wrong. It's so easy to let that stream of consciousness rush through our mind and take over our bodies, our minds. But the thing is, when you let that happen and when you fall into that pattern, you are a victim who is powerless in a situation. You have no control. You have no recourse or new direction as a consequence of those thoughts and emotions. Like maybe they serve in the moment to make you feel a little bit more comforted, to give you an explanation as to why things have happened. Maybe you feel better having those thoughts. But after a certain period of time, you can really easily get stuck there, wondering if it could have been, how it could have been, how it should have been. But if we move away from that and ask ourselves, what can we learn from this situation? What can we learn from the relationship that we had and has now gone, or a relationship that didn't work out? It's a really powerful one to ask. Now, I want to put this to you in either romantic or a friendship. The truth is, when you have relationships that quote unquote don't work out, which we've all absolutely have in either dimension, it shows you an aspect of a friendship or a romantic relationship that you're not prepared to settle for in the future. There will be aspects of that dynamic that with hindsight and a bit of reflection, you can say, that actually didn't work for me, or I didn't actually like that. Now, if you didn't ever have that, relationship, how would you know that that's something you don't like? When you do find the right person or your next best friend, and they have all these amazing qualities, you know how incredible that person is because you've been with someone who has shown you what you don't like or what doesn't work for you. And that therefore gives you a point of reference for knowing how much you'll appreciate someone who doesn't have those things, or somebody who's really intentional about not treating you that way, or about not doing those things, about not saying certain things. Or maybe that new person has a lot of self-awareness, and that's so refreshing to you because you know what it's like to be in a relationship with someone that has none. And so another thing I want to say is sometimes these relationships serve a purpose at different moments in time. So maybe you needed a relationship for that period of your life, and then it became a point where it no longer served you, and that's why it fizzled out or no longer worked because you grew one way and the other person grew another way. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no need for you to feel like a victim in that situation. It's you've learned that, relationships can be fleeting, or you've learned that people can grow apart, or maybe it's something a little bit more specific within the dynamic of your relationship. But I guarantee you, if you take your victim hat off, take control of your situation and ask the question, you'll find something that can teach you something you've learned and propel you forward and help you grow for the next relationship. The last example or context I guess I want to give for this reframe is work. And this is such an easy one to fall into that victim, why is this happening to me kind of mode? Because oftentimes we work for other people. And so we really don't feel that in control of our trajectory, our success, our pay, etc. And that's actually not entirely true. So let's say something happens to you. Say you were expecting a pay rise or promotion, and then you don't get it, but your colleague does. It's so easy to fall into a place, why me? Why has this happened to me? I'm a victim, of favoritism. You can probably come up with any excuse you want under the sun. If you ask the question, what can I learn from this situation? Now, you may need to park your ego aside as well when you ask this one, but maybe you actually haven't done enough work to justify the promotion or the pay rise. Maybe they haven't seen the work you've been doing. Maybe it is an indication to you that there needs to be stronger communication between you and senior management. Maybe you need to be a little bit more expressive or show the energy and effort you're putting in. I mean, what if you've been putting in all this work behind the scenes but nobody's noticing? Then, you're kind of running around in circles and feeling disappointed with yourself when really it's just a visibility issue. So rather than feeling spiteful and like a victim in these situations, it presents you with an opportunity to understand a little bit more, to go a little bit deeper, to have that conversation, ask the questions, ask them to give you direct feedback. Maybe that's something you've never done before, and for the past year, there's something you could have been working on that was an easy fix that you just didn't know. So it gives you that opportunity to start thinking in a different way and to start, creating different avenues of direction. Because when you're stuck as a victim, you're not even thinking about the next path. You're just like, well, this is my situation. I'm stuck here because of this situation or what's happened. And you kind of actually have no next step. But if you ask the question of what can I learn from this, or what's this trying to teach me, you're actively creating those options for yourself. That's how you take control of a situation. And that's why this is the most powerful reframe I've ever come across. And I guarantee it works in every situation, any difficulty, anything challenging you're facing. But do remember the caution, or I guess caveat, that sometimes you do need to let time process. You need to just heal emotionally before you're ready and prepared to ask this question. But it serves incredibly in those moments where you catch yourself out feeling like a victim, feeling like you have no control over a situation that you really want to change, and feeling frustrated by the fact that you kind of have no next option. So I really urge you to embody this. Maybe you're going through something challenging now that already you're thinking how it can be applied. And whether you want to just do this as a mental exercise, have a conversation with yourself in your head, whether you want to journal it out, whatever makes sense to you, just try and shift your thinking. And it might even be a case of just catching yourself out when you're having those thoughts of, poor me, the world's against me, of shifting that and going, actually, this is an opportunity because I'm learning things. And when you get to that point and you're practicing over and over again, eventually it kind of does become like second nature. That's not to say, when something terrible happens, you're instantly there. But over time, you naturally gravitate more towards what can I be grateful for and what can I understand from this situation than gravitating to the default, which maybe is all you've ever known, which is feeling like a victim. So I really love this reframe, and I hope it's kind of lit up some sparks in your mind too, given you a little bit of inspiration as to how you can reapproach things maybe you're dealing with now or that you know are coming up in the future. And I know for sure you know someone who's going to love this reframe too. So please share this episode on with them. It's such a beautiful way for us to grow our community. And I personally always love receiving podcast recommendations from my girlfriends. So pass this one on. I want to thank you so much for listening. A little reminder to just fill in the survey in the show notes if you haven't had a chance already. I will see you all on Monday for another guest episode. And until then, stay balanced.